Hello my friends and welcome. It looks like not just Russia may violate the international law. The main player, the biggest economy, biggest military and the biggest crazy guy out there, Donald Trump, recently put Russia down tremendously by capturing and seizing Russian oil tankers of the Shadow Fleet. One of the tankers was even confirmed to carry a Russian flag. In this video I'm also going to speak about the topic of humiliation of Putin and the extraordinary events which are miraculously happening with direct involvement of the White House administration. Some of you commented under my Iran and Venezuela video saying that I'm some sort of the Trump supporter. I try to justify Trump's action. No guys, I'm very concerned about what is happening, and what previously was done just by Houthis or Somali pirates now is done by the biggest military out there, the United States. But I want to tell why is it happening and who actually started all of that mess. The answer is simple, it's Putin. Putin violated the international rules, the world order before, even in 2014. By the time America was calm, Europe as well, they continued to trade with Russia as usual. Yeah, some of the sanctions were applied, but they were not functioning as they should. And Russia still got lots of the spare parts for the military infrastructure to produce tanks, BMPs and so on from the European Union countries, from the United States. And still they somehow obtained those spare parts, but via the third countries. Now those schemes are shady, nevertheless they are partially at least working for Russia. Not as well as before, absolutely. That's why the production of the military components in Russia reduced gradually, despite their efforts and record military budgets. And after the full-scale aggression in 2022, the world finally understood, okay, something is wrong with the Russian regime. Really, the main sanctions should be applied. They were supported by Europeans, by America. And they start to work in one or other way, but again, not fully. Even now we see that those packages are applied again and again. There is 20th package of the European sanctions, which is now in action against Russia. But Russia is not collapsing right away and capable to trade its oil. Why? Well, because Russia is now the outlaw country. It doesn't respect the international law and it sells its oil behind the main legislation. No main insurance companies are willing to cooperate with the Russian oil, with the Russian oil tankers. That's why Russia and Russian allies and partners, they create one-day companies and some shady insurances to operate tankers aside of the Western countries, mainly the ports of the European Union and the United States. If they really need to sell the Russian oil to those countries, well, basically they refuel the oil somewhere in Mediterranean. Usually it's happening not far away from Greece, from one tanker to another, from the shadow one to the legal one, and then they sell this oil elsewhere. So in general, applying the sanctions on the Russian Shadow Fleet is the same as applying some sort of the trade regulations on drug traffickers. It doesn't work because Russia violated all of those rules. It violated, first of all of those United Nations statutes and declarations by attacking Ukraine violently, aggressively. And secondary, they now trade behind the curtains, behind the real market. And this is not so good for those countries who follow normal regulations, United States and the European Union. At least they used to. You see, Putin presented himself to the world as the crazy dictator with nuclear weapons, and he wants Russia to be respected, or else we're gonna start some new special military operations. He said it openly. He really enjoyed himself being discussed, being so important that because of his will there should be some changes in the world. All of the leaders, they want to meet with him, they want to cooperate, communicate, to stop this crazy individual from the possible escalation. All of the press conferences were awaited so much. Oh, what Putin said, what he mentioned, what is happening. But now, with what has just happened, with the United States action against the Russian Shadow Fleet and real tanker that was carrying a Russian flag. You know, at least before it was like that if the vessel is out there with the flag of the country, it was the territory of the country. Now it's like more or less commercial thing, but the damage for the reputation of the Russian Federation and for Putin personally is huge. And the Russian Z-patriots, they don't understand what is happening. How could our military not react on Americans landing on our freaking tanker and capturing it? And Putin is calm. Putin is nowhere. Putin is calm about Maduro. Did he lock himself and crying in a bunker? What is happening, Putin? Well, it seems like there is the crazier guy out there compared to even Putin. His name is Donald Trump, and he is now in full release action. Because if you start some sort of the unruly action, trading the oil, using shadow fleet, some people may not like it. Some people might see the opportunity in it. Alright, there are some of the tankers, they're strange shadow tankers. Whom this oil belong to? Russia? They say that maybe yes, maybe not. What kind of the companies, what kind of the insurances do they have? Kind of shady. Maybe we can take it. We have our military, we have our forces, so why not to use those and to become richer and richer? That is how Donald Trump thinks. And obviously it's kind of risky for every one of us because it might create this some sort of the global confrontation, because the interests of the global nuclear superpowers may cross at some of the points, and they just have started the confrontation and they want to divide this world. It's already understandable, but even at the very beginning we see how they confront each other, even with a simple tanker, or with Maduro, who was definitely the ally of Russia. Now Maduro's regime is probably changing its priorities to trade with the United States of America, if we definitely believe to those Trump's tweets that he said that United States will sell its products to Venezuela and Venezuela will sell its oil to the United States. Some sort of this cooperation. So United States, they're not interested into change of the regime in Venezuela. For them, it's just money, just oil. The irony here is that Russia has started everything of that. Putin changed the world order to the rule of force, but Russia doesn't have this force compared to some other players like even China and the United States of America. Russian economy itself is not that big. It's the size of Italy. Now it's shrinking down, and it's imminent that there will be the crisis and stagflation of the Russian economy. It will start from this year and so on. In a couple of years, Russian economy, as Putin said himself, will soft land. But maybe this landing will be definitely a hard one, because judging on what is happening in Russia and in the world, this scenario may expedite dramatically. You see, the Russian budget was planned for $59 per barrel. $59 per barrel of the shadow oil, which they are capable to sell here and there. But now that oil may partially belong to the United States of America, because as I said to you, Donald Trump may say, oh, this is shadow oil, so we may take it if it goes to the Western Hemisphere especially. We also see how United States pressure India again to stop purchasing Russian oil. There was the tweet of Donald Trump 3 days ago. Initially I thought that, oh, it's just a tweet, but in a couple of days I saw the news that the main Indian company, after all, refused to sign the contract for purchasing new oil from Russia. Instead, they will change for Saudi Arabia, also the other Middle Eastern oil producers, and of course, they'll purchase more of the American oil. And all of that is the interest of Donald Trump. He's even more crazier than Putin, it looks like, because he said that he will be responsible for selling the Venezuelan oil, and it's up to him how he might spend those funds for Venezuelans, for Americans. You know, it will be him personally to decide. He is the king of the United States of America. At least he thinks like that. Well, not just he thinks, but he also acts. For example, for the next year, he plans to boost the military budget of the United States to $1.5 trillion. Now it's roughly $1 trillion, and he wants to increase by 50%. It means that he's getting ready for something. He's getting ready for the global escalation. He says about Greenland, European politicians, they're in shock about it. Some say that they should react militarily, but some say that Denmark should allow United States forces to boost their presence in Greenland, not interfering, not go into the confrontation. But in this case, it will be just an annexation of that island, it looks like. And everyone is locked and loaded on that kind of the scenario. It's been told elsewhere in the media. Donald Trump tells about it. Miller and everyone in the White House, also Pete Hegseth and Rubio, they're definitely looking at Greenland because of the resources, simply like that. With Donald Trump, obviously it's the rule of force and maybe just the global confrontation, global war with millions of life losses once again may bring us to some sort of the coordination and respect of the international law. As it was sadly in the middle of the previous century, but now we have nukes, so it could bring even more losses, this global confrontation. The division of the world is not possible without the global escalation to the military conflict. It's already understandable. And about Donald Trump and Putin's relations, well, I would say that there is a thin line between love and hate, and we are now closer to the hate stage than to love, as it was before. Those meetings in Anchorage and so on, Russians themselves, they're laughing about it, that the outcome of the Anchorage meeting is the seizure of the Russian tanker under the Russian flag with maybe Russian oil. Well, they say that it was empty, but nevertheless the idea is the same. United States has used its military special forces to get the Russian tanker. And that's the biggest escalation between two of the nuclear countries and basically humiliation of Putin. But what can Putin do? Nothing. And he is not saying a thing, he's not even commenting. Just some of the crazy Russian members of parliament, they're saying, oh, we should use Oreshnik, Burevestnik, something like that. But it will not work. Russia is way weaker compared to the United States in every sort of the sphere. And what Russia may do in this scenario is just to say, oh, it's very bad, we are concerned, like those European leaders or even the United States, then it was the annexation of Crimea. They were concerned, they applied some of the so-called sanctions, but they continue to do what they do. And that's the same thing about Russia, because America is the bigger fish. You cannot hunt it because you are the small fish, small Putin. But that guy has nukes that were left as the heritage of the Soviet Union, and he thinks that it gives him this authority to divide the world. Well, Donald Trump, I think after all, he may escalate to every sort of the level. He wants to make business as usual, but if he faces the threats from Putin directly, he may respond. I believe that Donald Trump may do it because he is the same crazy guy as Putin, maybe crazier, as I mentioned. The Russian FSB elite thought that they can control the American commerce, that, okay, we're gonna take Ukraine now, they're gonna force Ukraine for capitulation. But Ukraine is more or less independent, yeah. It's dependent on military support, but America cancelled it, and it just works via the Pearl program, via European allies or partners, how it's better to say. But America doesn't have direct leverage on Ukraine to give up its own territories. It's good, actually, that in this world we also have those countries as Ukraine. Well, simply because for Ukraine it's the existential war. America and Donald Trump, they're okay for Russia to occupy Ukraine in general. They don't care about this sphere of the ex-Soviet part of influence of Russia, and Russia wants to restore it. But Russia wants too much, yeah, it seems like. Especially then Russia becomes the competitor on the oil market directly for the United States of America. Donald Trump doesn't care what's about that Russian economy. He wants to sell oil him personally. He wants maybe even to sell Russian shadow oil just to have this extra profit. Who knows? So he has his own personal interest. And how Russia wants to maintain its economy without oil, it's not the thing of Donald Trump to be concerned about. But Russians understand that they cannot function without the oil economy, so of course there is the conflict of the interests between the United States and Russia. Moreover, it seems like yesterday Donald Trump gave the green light for Senate to apply those crazy sanctions on Russia. Secondary sanctions. We're speaking about almost 500% on those companies or even countries who continue to trade with Russia. That could be definitely devastating. Well, I believe it then I see it, but it looks promising. It seems like Putin humiliated Donald Trump so much that now it backfires for Putin absolutely everywhere, especially with oil. And this so-called respect between Donald Trump and Putin, it doesn't play that great role. Donald Trump wants just the profit. That's what he wants for him, for his family, for his friends, first thing, and later maybe for the United States of America, because after all he wants to be a popular guy, but he does a tremendous mistake. He is not competent, that's why his popularity goes down, and maybe he is looking for the steps to restore it, but it may bring us again to the big confrontation, escalation, and many wars, because Donald Trump said about ambitions in the Western Hemisphere against multiple of the countries, and the war is the worst thing, guys, that potentially could be. You know what happened in Venezuela with this Maduro extraction is a very unique thing. This operation was conducted by the most capable forces in the world, and it was backed up by United States military, United States aviation. If it is a global confrontation, global war, it's not gonna be like that. It's the usual soldiers, young people, maybe older, going and sacrifice their lives massively. It's not gonna be some fun stuff. It's not gonna be a full backup of Navy and aviation elsewhere. It's not possible to achieve at the wide front line in global confrontation like it is happening in Ukraine. Even for the United States Army, with all of the resources, it's not possible to have this tremendous advantage elsewhere, especially with ambitions that were proclaimed by Donald Trump. It's gonna be just a sacrifice of human lives and human health, soldiers, men, Americans. And I see how we are heading towards that scenario. I'm not here to scare you or something, it's just what I see, guys. Behavior of those leaders, Putin, Donald Trump, Xi Jinping. There is already the confrontation, the cross of the interests that leads to even special operation against Russian tanker. From one side, it's good to see that the guy who started everything of that, Putin personally, he now suffers, he now doesn't know what to say, but at the same time it looks like we live our last years in this peaceful world, because the escalation, as for me personally, it's imminent. And Putin now, he is calm, but he still has Russian population, Russian army and nuclear weapons, so he is pretty much capable to respond on the oil tanker. He will not do it because he is afraid of the global escalation so far. But if it starts, it starts. And he already tried to touch the European security, sending airplanes, fighter jets, and all of those drones. So he is looking for the possible escalation, but at the same time, he is afraid to play against the bigger fish, as I mentioned, Donald Trump and America. United States of America, yeah, because some of you are from Canada, from Mexico, and that's also America. So the Russian dictator has his piece of humiliation, not just from Ukrainian army, but also from his friend and partner Donald Trump. Who would have thought that it is possible the last year? It seems like Donald Trump changes, he is unpredicted, as I mentioned. I still do not expect that he will do something good for Ukraine, because he thinks it's not his sphere of the influence. He would like definitely this war to be stopped, and the occupation of Ukraine is like one of the variants, by Russia of course, not by United States. But at the same time, he understands that Russia is the competitor for the United States in many of the spheres. First of all, in economy, oil economy. I think that the last time Russia was humiliated that much directly by the United States of America during the confrontation in Syria. Wagner army went to take American positions and they were nailed down. So obviously, if we compare Russia and United States, they're just uncomparable. The United States obviously has better technologies in the army, advanced army, but Russia, they have military experience, and Russia may still possess significant threat for example, Baltic countries, as I mentioned. And I'm sure that Putin now thinks of how to show that he is still a mighty boss. Maybe he will start some sort of the new provocation against some of the Western countries, we'll see. I put it as the real scenario for maybe this year or the next one. And China may also start its special military operation against Taiwan, but I don't think that China is for now capable to do it, because in reality it's gonna be the biggest landing operation and in general the biggest military operation in the human history, and the losses could be dramatic for the China army. It's not just Taiwan that will defend itself, it's another countries in the region, also maybe United States. They already say that they will not land forces directly on the island, but they will use their navy and aviation to conquer the possible attack on Taiwan. And I believe that United States may do it because of the semiconductors, which are quite profitable for the United States and Europe and Western world, and also Asian allies. Without semiconductors, it's basically impossible to maintain advanced army of the United States and advanced economy. So they will do, I think, everything possible except boots on the ground to prevent China from attack. So in case of this hard defense, the only variant for China is to destroy Taiwan, level it to the ground as Russia does in Ukraine by conquering all of those ruined villages, towns and cities. So there is no solution, definitely, if they use military force for those factories that produce semiconductors to survive. That's what I think based on the realities of the modern day war. And Taiwan, they should invest more in drone production. Aviation drones, drone interceptors, drone boats, submarine drones, and they should consult with Ukraine to start this massive production. For the United States, it's also must-have if they really want to conquer someone in the 21st century. We see that they use those old methods, for example, helicopters. And just imagine if Russia, for example, puts their military on their tankers of the Shadow Fleet, and they give a couple of the drone interceptors to the Russian soldiers on board of those tankers. They would be capable to shut down those helicopters flying to them. And later on, the United States, well, for them it will be hard to prove that definitely it was the strike from the Russian drone or something, because where is the Russian ship? It is there, and there is the Russian submarine. They're just watching. They were not using any sort of the weapons, and some drone appeared from somewhere. Was it definitely a drone? Maybe it was a bird. Whose drone was it? So I would say that's the main problem for the United States Army, because yes, they are advanced, but still they don't have enough drones, drone interceptors, drone boats and so on. Maybe overall it's a good sign because we don't know who is the enemy now for democracy. United States, Russia, who? Well, Russia with full-scale intervention to Ukraine, of course, it's the pure evil. But the United States might do the same, not just against Venezuela or something, but also against European allies. And we heard the rhetorics from Donald Trump and J.D. Vance especially. They really look at Europe as at the enemy now, competitor enemy. They want to divide the European Union and to rule separate countries. That's not okay, guys. Absolutely. We live in this strange world, and it's nothing good about it. And Europe should finally organize its own common army. Without it, they are the easy prey for those beasts around. So it's the only possible solution. One by one, they're easy prey. Together, united with a military command, Europe will be capable to withstand everything. It will be respected by Donald Trump. We see how Donald Trump, he disrespects all of those leaders. Maybe just Stubb, Finnish president or prime minister, who plays the golf with Trump. That's the only guy probably who get the respect because of those personal connections. But the rest, they're weak for Donald Trump. Putin is respected before, but Donald Trump doesn't like how Putin behaves towards him. That's why he started some of the special operations conquering Russian tankers. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed those kind of the videos outside. I really like to walk and film those videos on the camera. I'm really inspired talking about the stuff, mostly not in the studio but outside. I don't know, for me it's better. And if you want to make my job possible, please join Patreon. The link for it is in the video description just below, or membership on this YouTube channel if you watch me on YouTube. If on Spotify, just subscribe, okay? And like this video to boost it in algorithms. Thank you so much for that as well. I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time. Snowy.